Hey everyone, welcome back to Cyber and Tech with Dre. Today we're going to talk about your home Wi-Fi network and how you secure it. It's very important for you to take this seriously, although being at home you might be in a relaxed state, but do not take this for granted because this can be a gateway to a lot more breaches. Imagine that you brought your work device home and your internet or your Wi-Fi got hacked into. All of the transmissions will be open and vulnerable to attacks, including those devices that you brought from work. And even though you might be using VPNs and so on, it might be possible for the threat actors to get into that network just because they were able to get into your Wi-Fi network. So we're going to go through some basic best practices that you can do when you are at home. And this is easier than most people would think. First order of business, choosing a strong router password. The router is what provides Wi-Fi for your internet access. You may get this from your service provider, or if you want to go out and get a router yourself, you need to see the default password and make sure that you change those. The router settings for each router can easily be looked up in Google, and because of this, you want to make sure that if someone chooses to look up your model router, that they cannot just guess your password by entering the default credentials. Now, when you go into the router settings using your browser, you want to make sure that you create a strong password. And when I say strong password, you want at least 14 characters, which includes a mix of letters, numbers, and special characters. Once you have this, even if the password hash is obtained, it will be more difficult for someone to crack that hash. Second on the to-do list in terms of securing your network is enabling network encryption. And this is simply going to your settings and selecting the highest level of encryption that's available. Your provider may have WPA, WPA2, or WPA3. The highest level at the moment is WPA3. However, some networks will not have that available for you. So you just need to select the highest one that is available. And it is always recommended for you to choose this because of the speed at which things are changing and the fact that the threat actors are increasingly finding ways to defeat the encryption algorithms. So you want to make it as hard as possible for them. Another best practice to bear in mind is to change the default SSID. Now, while this won't necessarily prevent you from getting discovered, it will add some level of difficulty in terms of someone finding your network. It's very important to do this because cybersecurity and securing your network is usually done best if it's done in different layers of security. So while this might not be the end all and be all or the best thing that can be done, it's also another level that will make it a little bit harder for the threat actors to get into your network. Avoid having personal information integrated into that SSID because this will make it more obvious. You want to be as anonymous as possible, so find a name that has nothing to do with your business, your name, your family, etc. Alright, so I'm going to demonstrate how you can change some of these settings, and I do have some default settings on my router, so I'm going to show you how you can locate your router from the browser. Now if you go into the command prompt here, let me just expand the screen so you can see it better, and you type in ipconfig. Then you want to look at the default gateway IP address, which is 192.168.1.1, and once you have that, you simply need to type that address in. And as I said earlier, these default settings can be researched by anyone, so you want to make sure that you have these changed. So once you get into here, you're just going to click on that link and it will take you to a login page, and you'll use the login credentials that you have from your service provider. Now I use Optimum here, so I'm going to log in using my credentials. And now that I've logged in, just need to wait a second. If my provider would speed my internet up. So now you're looking at the interface for your router settings. You can go to your router settings here, and it might vary. The way that it looks might vary from one provider to the next, but this is how the Optimum looks. So let's see. It's this easy to change your network name, which is the same as the SSID, to something else. Something else. All right, so I've changed mine to something else. And all you would need to do here is to change the default password that's here as well. Once you put that in, the security type here, as I mentioned earlier, the WPA2 is what is the highest that's available here. So you would select the highest that's available and then you hit save. So once you hit save here, then the Wi-Fi, when you click the Wi-Fi to get connected, that's what you would see. And that's how simple it is to change your router SSID and your password. Another step that you can take to secure your network is to set up an additional guest network. And this guest network will be provided to people who visit your dwelling. So because you have this guest network, you will limit the access or the attack surface, because the lesser amount of people that have access to your passwords, then the better it will be in terms of keeping your network safe. However, even for your guest network, you want to make sure that the password is equally complicated and hard to guess. So you want to make sure that both passwords, both the one for your home network and the guest network, are strong password. And you can also limit the bandwidth and restrict the access to certain parts of your network when you set up this guest network. So this provides added layers of security again. In addition to selecting the highest level of encryption, you want to make sure that you disable certain services on your Wi-Fi that make your network security very weak. This would be disabling remote management and the WPS. Remote management and the WPS are deprecated security measures that are easily broken and they are very vulnerable. And these are commonly exploited by hackers. So you want to make sure that those are disabled. Last but not least, keep your router firmware updated. You want to make sure that your router is updated with the latest firmware, because once your firmware loses support and is vulnerable, then that's another point of entry for threat actors to get into your network. And when your router or any device has a vulnerability in terms of the firmware or the software, then it can be exploited, because hackers continue to do their research and look up what firmware is no longer supported or what they are vulnerable to, and this is shared in their network. So you want to make sure that you are on top of this and check regularly for the latest updates. So to quickly recap what we just covered, we went over the steps that you can take to secure your home network. And these involve setting strong router passwords, enabling the strongest level encryption, changing your router SSID, setting up a guest network, disabling your remote management or your WPS, and updating your firmware. If you haven't implemented these, you need to do it as soon as possible because you want to reduce the chances of becoming a victim of a data breach or hackers getting access to confidential information. You don't want to be responsible for hackers using your network as a gateway to your organization because you brought your device home. Remember, a secure home network is your first line of defense in the digital world. Stay safe, stay secure.